and are committed to helping you make it happen. At DKP & Co Chartered Accountants, we are more than just accountants. We are business advisors, taxation consultants, and strategists that specialise in setting up businesses. We understand the client and give them the very best customised advice and strategies to achieve their goals. Visit our website, dkpco.com.au, or give us a call today on 03 9023 9370. Fast, proactive, personal. That's DKP & Co Chartered Accountants.
Ever wanted a career in football? At the Global Institute of Sport, you can now study a master's degree in football business or football coaching and analysis right here in Australia. GIS is the largest provider of sports degrees in the UK, with campuses at Wembley and Etihad Stadium. Learn online with unique access to the iconic MCG and a big-hitting Australian industry network. Be one of the first Australians to get a football master's degree and join GIS's global network of football leaders. Apply now to start in February 2023. Learn more at gis.sport/FNR. That's gis.sport/FNR.
You're listening to the State of Our Football Nation on FNR. George Danikian, joined by Pokuah Frimpong, who's running all the controls and making sure that, unlike some things that have happened in the last few weeks right around the world, we don't crash and burn, but we actually fly, stream across Australia and stream across the world on this wonderfully unique platform that allows us to talk football 24/7. Before I go any further, commiserations to young Pokuah. EPL news this morning saw Manchester City devour the team that's been absolutely tearing apart the EPL, the English Premier League. I'm talking about her Arsenal. But I'm sure that they have much more still to do and many more opportunities, because this competition, I think the World Cup has added another layer of complexity and challenges. Some players have met it, some are still trying to get their head around it, and of course injuries are impacting and will continue to impact teams and clubs right across not only the EPL but across the various leagues in the world, and even the A-League. And we've got a huge derby, Melbourne derby. Pokuah, early tip before you go any further: will it be Victory, which is their home game, or will it be City? And is this the one where City actually starts the game 1-0 up because they were 27 minutes in when the game had to be suspended because of fan invasion?
I'm not quite sure, but my tip is for this game will be City, and it'll be a comfortable win for them.
Wow, comfortable. I've never, aside from the 6 or 7-0 whitewashing of a couple of years ago, I've never ever, as a long-time Heart and City fan, never ever seen the derbies as easy. They've always, no matter their positions, it seems to me the players get it. They understand how important it is for the fans, and they do their level best. And Popovic will not want to give away any more room. There has been much too much upheaval at Victory, and they want some consistency. They want some goal scoring. They've put some young kids in, so anything is happening. And by the way, the action not only in the A-League, but the NPL underway in Victoria. And, of course, tonight, Lakeside Oval, the scene of some interesting contests over the years, will feature a new team, a new name, Moreland City.
Yeah, it'll be
making it their debut in the NPL 1, and they're playing South Melbourne.
They are playing South Melbourne.
The Kings.
It will be a fascinating contest. I won't be able to see it. I'll be watching the Matildas game from home. Matildas games from home.
Well, that's the other thing.
Yeah.
We've got football coming out of every proverbial opening, and the best part about it is the Global Institute of Sport has backed us, as they do each and every week, as sponsors. And the next, and our special guest today is a guy who has lived the game, who's loved the game, and is putting back into the game. His name is Andy Bernal, Andrew Bernal. I remember him as a star at Sydney Olympic. I remember him as not only a fearsome competitor for the Socceroos. He went to England. He went to and played professional football there. He went to La Liga, to the Spanish league, when very few Australians were being, given a Guernsey, and made a name for himself. And these days, when he's not mentoring young talent, when he's not being a FIFA agent, he's also being a super coach in terms of not only extra physical work, but trying to give them the mental strength that it takes in any elite endeavour, whether it's be business or sport, to get that precious edge. Welcome to FNR's State of Our Football Nation, Andrew Bernal. Andy, how are you?
I'm fantastic, guys, and thanks for having me on and being able to chat football today with you guys. It's a wonderful program you have. And, I'm just pretty chuffed to be back in football now. Listen
to me. You have loved this. You've, as a player, as an agent, as a man manager, I suppose, and now as a super coach, a super assistant coach, in that you play so many different roles, mental and physical. You're going the extra mile and you're looking for the extra edge. Nick Montgomery's a tremendous young coach doing some wonderful things at the Central Coast Mariners, and you're there, part of that entourage, making the difference, and assisting Richard Peel to make sure that the Central Coast Mariners, who've been in the wilderness for a number of years, make a serious challenge for an A-League title. Am I being fair or unfair?
You're being basically spot on. Richard's a wonderful new owner of the club. We met about a year ago. We're good mates, and
both of you out of Canberra? Is that what it is?
Yeah, we're both out of Canberra, and we just met over a conversation. He's giving his son some advice on a football level, and Richard said, "Can I buy 20 of your autobiographies for my executives at any time fitness?"
This is your biography called Riding Shotgun, the story about you and David Beckham. Is that the one?
Well, it's a story of my life. It's a story of the son of Spanish immigrants returning to Spain and being the first Socceroo Australian to play, in La Liga, to sign for a La Liga club. It's the story of an Aussie kid that became the first Socceroo Australian kid to captain an English football club, that went on to manage Tim Cahill, Tom Rogic, David Beckham, and then encounter some dark days and come back and see the light. And it's a fascinating story that is doing really well around the world, because it transcends. It's more than football. It's a powerful message about
resilience and survival.
Yeah, resilience is a character trait that many people never talk about, but it's something that in football, in life, really, you need bundles of to get ahead. So, that book thing was my life, but there's another chapter happening now at the Mariners, and Richard buying the club allowed me to be here. I then met Nick Montgomery, a wonderful man, a wonderful coach who he
and a terrific player, wasn't he? He was a terrific player too.
Not many people know, but he has the most appearances for Sheffield United in the past century. That's a big record, but he won't tell you that. So I'll tell you that. And he is of the ilk. I've been around Vicente Del Bosque, I've been around Queiroz, I've been around Ancelotti, all these guys, managers that I had in the UK, and that's where, at that level, is where Nick Montgomery will end up. He is that good.
There you go.
It's a great thing to hear.
Isn't it a great thing to hear?
Yeah,
but on top of that, a very humble man, and a guy that came out here and played as a marquee for the Mariners and is giving back to the community now. And it's a wonderful community here. It's just such a beautiful part of the country, and very little politics involved. There's no rugby league or rugby union team here. We play out of a wonderful, iconic stadium in Oxford that overlooks the water with palm trees, and it's just a really, really beautiful part of the world. And I'm blessed to wake up every morning and be able to go in, and I sit in between Nick and the strength conditioning department. I deliver a lot of the fitness and strength programs and then mentor lads. They've all read my book. They know all the trappings and the nice bits and the bad bits of football of life. And hopefully I can continue to empower, the next generations and continue to have, a wonderful breeding ground here at our academy. And most importantly as well, that the first team continues to do well. And, we pride ourselves on many occasions being the underdogs, but there are people at this club that, if people do their homework, are winners and have been through it all at high levels of European football. So we fear nobody. We create great athletes. We are great athletes. And so if you play us and you beat us, hats off to you, because you're going to have to earn it.
When you spoke to Richard about potentially coming to go into work with the Mariners, what was the first thing that came through your mind? Was it, I want to go in straight away, or did you have to be convinced, or how did that come about?
It was kind of, the initial talk was, we were both from Canberra, so we were discussing the starting up of a Canberra A-League team.
Why am I not surprised?
But I've seen those things come and go, and we spoke to the powers that be at in A-League circles at Football Australia, and it just made a lot more sense to come here, and Richard did a deal with Mike Charlesworth. No one said that he could do a deal with, that people thought that Mike wouldn't do deals with anybody, and Richard got on the phone and they did a deal, and within a month of Richard saying we're going to be involved or buy an A-League club, he's a man of his word, and we had become, what we are now at the Central Coast Mariners, and he continues to put his money where his mouth is, and
he's a doer. He's a doer. Yeah. If he says something, he'll back it. And that's what we've discerned in the 2 or 3 discussions we've had with Richard and also with Nick. You can hear very closely, and I'm hearing it from you too, quite why the Central Coast Mariners this year are not only playing a really exciting brand of football, but are showcasing some wonderfully talented young players. And listen, we all know that there are clubs out there with more money and better facilities, but my goodness gracious me, you guys are giving them something to think about.
Was the... you go, Andy.
No, go.
I was going to ask, was the challenges of a club like the Mariners and their underdog mentality and where they sit in the football landscape in Australia, that's something that drew you to going there and working with them? That it's not going to be easy. It's going to be hard. It's going to be hard, and there's going to be some real challenges, but it will be ultimately rewarding. As
Andy would say, you're going to have to suffer.
Yeah.
Is that right, Andy?
Look, I think that is a challenge in itself, when you're up against organisations like Melbourne City, for example, that have budgets that are 3, 4, 5 times what we have. But that's a challenge. The other great thing that, on the other side for us, we are able to bring young kids through. We like to inspire and empower young talent to come through, like, for example, Garang Kual. And, for me, the greatest thing is to give a young Australian kid at 16, 17, 18 an opportunity in an A-League side that he probably wouldn't get elsewhere. He'll get the opportunity here. We have people around him that will inspire and empower that young man. And if he does well for us, he can go on and play in Europe. And if that happens, then we're not upset by that, because, if he's gone away and signed for a big club in Europe, he's obviously done well for us. And we will continue to produce and manufacture the next ones coming through. But we fear nobody. Mm-hmm. We have we look at every club as opponents, and as long as we're prepared physically and mentally for that particular game, there's nobody we fear here. I wouldn't fear any team in Asia. Over 1 or 2 games, if we played a top Japanese side, if we played a top Korean side, I believe we can beat them. And I've been around some of the best players in the world. I've played against some of the best players in the world. And the one outstanding feature that all these players have, and people forget it, but I can tell you about Messi and Maradona, and I've been around Ronaldo, Nazario, Zidane, Beckham, Figo, Roberto Carlos.
What is the key ingredient? What's the separator? Other than the actual out-and-out talent, what is the key ingredient that requires them to step up and make the difference?
Every single one of those players is an absolute world-class athlete. Leo Messi, and not many people know this because you only, generally tend to watch the dribbling, the wonderful feats, with the ball, the football.
Yep.
But Messi has the fastest 20-metre sprint ever recorded, faster than the 20-metre time ever recorded at an NFL draft.
So he's lightning when he wants to be.
Yeah, when he wants to be, and people also don't realise that. People bang on now about how he walked around in the World Cup and he does this and he doesn't run around much, but people won't understand or know that for his first 10 years at Barcelona, the first ball recovered by a Barcelona player, 76% of that time was Leo Messi when they'd lost the ball in attack.
There you go. That's a stat. That's a stat that very few people would appreciate or grasp at, and it's that's a desire thing though, isn't it? Not only do you have to have the talent, but you need to have that passion that we talked about it earlier, the desire to suffer without the ball in order to make sense of when you have the ball to do something with it. And we're seeing more and more people talking about it though, aren't we?
You only really have the ball for 3 minutes in a game.
Wow. Think about that. Think about that stat, Pokuah.
Yeah.
So most of the time, what are you doing without it? Are you pressurising people? How are you pressurising them? Are you tackling them? Are you winning headers? How are you defending? Are you recovering? Are you
finding room, making room to receive the ball?
And the way football is going now is, if you're not a world-class athlete, and the greater the player that Mbappe, we'll talk about him.
Yeah, Mbappe,
How quick is he?
Oh, lightning fast.
Exactly.
Pokuah and I have talked about that ingredient called speed. Speed kills, and it also frightens the hell out of defenders, and you know all about that.
So you look. You have to have a football brain. You have to have technical ability. But if physiologically, I've seen players and played against players in the English Championship, which is the level below, for example, the EPL.
Yep.
I've seen some wonderful, wonderful players that are technically as good as anyone playing for Man United, Man City, et cetera, But the guys that play for the top 5, 6, 7 clubs in the UK are just a better athletic version of the guy that's playing for one of the lower EPL sides. Or
playing for Reading, yeah. Wow.
Yeah, it's just the motor that you're born with. Ron Smith used to say to us at the AIS, if you put it in layman's terms, what is VO2 max? You look at Vinnie Grella, for example. If he was a V8 Holden, in the V8 supercars, then Valeri was a V6. He was just he was a different Commodore type car, but a just inferior version, with all due respect.
And I just got a question. How easy or hard is that to get a player to understand that, especially a young player who may be naturally, gifted and maybe athletic, but could get to another step? They're like, oh, no, I can always carry on with what I've got at the moment. How hard is that to switch a player's mindset and get them to understand what you're explaining now?
They either grasp it very quickly or they don't play, and they just
they miss the boat.
Yeah, we make when I speak to the academy boys here, I make no bones about it that part of my job is to eradicate the weak. however you want to see that. But, the football is a machine. The game is a machine. And when I went to Spain, I was left in no uncertain terms. And from minute one, I was made fully aware that the game spat out the weak. And the one or two that progressed ended up in the first team or playing for their national team. So, there's different ways now, and times have changed, and you have to talk to the kids, differently, in different ways. But the message, the big kind of message overall is the same. You need to be able to do this. You need to be able to physically do this in a game, or you just won't compete. And then there's other kids that. For example, I'll give you an example. Josip Simonic played 105 times for Croatia.
Yes.
Born in Canberra, raised in Canberra till he was 18.
That's right. Played at the academy. He was part of the intake there, wasn't he? Of the
yes,
the Academy for Excellence. Yep.
He, for many years, he wanted to be a number 6. And he went overseas, and the top Dutch clubs and German clubs said, you'll never be a number 6. You just physiologically, with the motor you have, with your VO2 max, it's impossible for you to play top-level football. So Ron Smith moved him to centre half, and he took off, and that's where he won 105 caps for Croatia. So there's an example of understanding
your role,
positions of the team, and the speed, the speed and endurance that's required from each different position. I've marked the Andy Coles, the Batistutas of these guys. These guys are grease lightning.
Andy, can you take your memory back to a time at the Olympics in 2000 when the Australian women's it wasn't 2000, it was 94 I think, or 96 in Greece, when the women's 8, the Australian women's 8 were competing for a medal, and one of our rowers laid down, gave up in the final, in the final, and gained the reputation as being lay down Sally. And there were so many questions raised about how she had survived to make the final cut and to be in that team. And a very fine coach said to me, the mistake wasn't hers, the mistake was the coaching team that did not, were not brave enough with themselves to say that she, under pressure, would let herself down. You follow? And his attitude at the time was they should have not cut her, because that's an emotional scar, but load her up and let her miss the boat. In other words, fail. You follow? So it's a physical failure rather than saying to her, you're not good enough. Actually keep loading her until she could realise herself that I just can't cut it. So there are many ways to spin a message, and I reckon the coaching teams like the ones you're involved in, because of the experience you guys have garnered, and because you know how hard it was, and you also remember what the Spaniards thought of a kangaroo in their midst when you arrived, and how difficult it was.
Well, the great thing is what you said is actually spot on, and it's something that Richard and I discussed in Canberra a year ago before we were even here, and then part of that was to put together a coaching unit, a coaching team that to deliver that message. Sometimes when you want to deliver messages like that, if people have played at the highest level, so you put Nick and myself, a lot of people within our staff that, once you start having, 1,000 games in top European football, then you're able to, because you've experienced yourself, the loading that you need to give people now to either be able to see whether they can cut it or whether they eradicate themselves. So, we here at the Mariners, from day one when I came and saw Nick's first coaching session, and he's got a wonderful assistant in Serge Raimundo who worked at the Benfica Academy of Portuguese guy.
Yeah, tremendous talent.
Very fantastic, one of the world level coach.
Yep.
So you've got people with experience at those levels, and I said to Rich the first week that I saw the coaching session, I said, this reminds me of EPL level, Spanish level, Portuguese level. So, and we deliver that intensity and the knowledge to our young kids. That's what we deliver because we've lived it, we've experienced it, we understand it, and it's hard to deliver something that you've never lived yourself.
That's so true, so true.
Andy, I want to ask you obviously about that system that you guys have created now. How do you, as a football club, ensure that it's able to be sustainable for a long period of time, so that this crop of the young players that are coming up, they've got it, and then the next crop and it maintains, so it's the whole
So
system,
as the classes come through, they
it's
can...
all the same and everyone is
Good question.
at the same level.
Well, I think it comes from the top, and you need to create for example, our club, we need to create a message within Australian football circles that we give young kids opportunity.
So it's the messaging, huh?
Yeah, if you're 16, if you're 17, if you're 18, you will play for us if you're good enough. You'll get thrown in and you will play A-League. You won't have to... some other clubs can import, 3, 4, 5, 6 foreigners. They can use older players, more experienced, returning Socceroos, et cetera. At our club, we don't do that. If you're 15, 16, 17 and you're good enough, you will get thrown in. So that's a message to every kid in Australia, that, might have offers from Melbourne City, might have offers from Victory, Sydney FC, Western Sydney Wanderers. We have kids from all over the country that come to us because they see that pathway of opportunity that is the shining or the beacon of light for them. And we tell them as well, there's nothing else matters, only what you do on the pitch. And if you're good enough, you'll play. And hopefully, that message and the fact that every year we blood those kids and they come in and there's new ones and they might all come through our academy system from the age of 11, 12, 13, or sometimes they'll be kids from Western Sydney Wanderers or Sydney FC or Melbourne City that haven't been given maybe the opportunity that they thought they would get.
Or they mature later.
Correct. And you know what?
That's another thing too.
I'm not even bagging any of these. These are wonderful organisations, so and everybody runs their organisation as they choose and see fit. So for me, I respect all those organisations. We just have to do it a different way. And sometimes a kid will come here and he may have been a fantastic young Socceroo at Melbourne City or Melbourne Victory and it didn't work for him there. The culture wasn't right, the environment wasn't right. There are many factors that go into the production of a wonderful young talent. So we try to cover all those bases, but the most important thing is for any kid in this country. And I know when I was Australian youth team captain at 18, if a Central Coast
responsibility. Huge responsibility, Andy.
But yes, but if the Central Coast Mariners had to come in at 18 and said, you know what, you're going to play in our first team, I'd be here. I would have, from what I know now and being part of this organisation, if I was a young kid in the country, it's certainly a club that I'd want to be at. So, there's I could go on all day about it, but it's a wonderful culture and a wonderful environment. And if you asked me, Rich, about Nick Montgomery, about Serge, in one sentence, or a couple of words about these men, about these wonderful coaches, it wouldn't even be about football. The first thing I would say to you is they are wonderful men, wonderful humans.
Yeah. Personality is important. Good quality.
Is that what makes them so special? That they're people first, and they are excellent coaches because they're great people.
I believe that's a very, very big part. You need to be strong. You need to have empathy. You need to be vulnerable. You need to be strict. You need to be tough on young people when you have to be. You need to be a father figure. You need to You need to lead by example. So many factors that But when I always look at the greats of the game and how they do it, and I've been lucky to know Vicente Del Bosque personally, ex-Real Madrid coach and Spain legend, and people like Ancelotti, et cetera, just wonderful men who really, take a lot of time to understand their players and sit down and talk to their players and have coffee with them or a dinner together, or understand, the backgrounds they come from, what makes them tick. Football in itself is just not enough. You need to understand
what makes them tick. That's the most amazing thing I see. Yeah, you just come back. We just lost you for a millisecond there, Andrew. It's probably some of the atmospherics.
That's okay, but you just kind of, in that coaching now, you need to really. I think you may have heard it. I might have said it a minute ago, but what makes a kid from a favela tick? In Brazil, what is a different to what makes a kid from Lecky?
You have an inkling. You have an inkling. Because you've been at the very at the coalface of some of those very tough competitions that you have to have a demeanour, a special demeanour, or a fire within you, or you will not get out of first base. You won't get out of the coaching session. In Spain, in your first time, take us back. The first time you walked into the club that you signed for. And, were you easily or well received, or were you seen as something out of the box that people couldn't put a finger on?
Oh, look, I signed for Sporting Gijon. At the time, they were top 5 in Spain, just behind Real Madrid, Barcelona, Atletico Madrid, and Valencia. They are a wonderful club and still are. And, he was a kid from Australia coming over, and they thought the only thing in Australia were kangaroos and rugby league balls. And honestly, it was a real arrogance and almost, kind of a different
condescending
racism in a way. Yeah, condescending. But, the only saving grace I had was my parents were Spanish, so I was kind of one of them in a way.
So you understood everything they were saying?
Yeah, I understood everything I was saying, but I was made to feel very unwelcome the first couple of months, until you prove yourself on a football pitch, until you play in the first team at Gijon, until they see you as an equal to them on a football level, then it's a very, very tough environment and a very tough society for anybody. That's why,
Was Britain the same? Was playing in England the same?
It's always tough. It's European football, the UK, the continent it's just tough. It's the A-League here is a wonderful building, block and platform for young Socceroos and young talent to then go over and play in Europe. But I really respect every Australian player that goes overseas and makes a career of it, because it's you're up against it. We're not very well respected in terms of, football, even though we may do okay at World Cups. You can still go to Spain and Italy now, and they really look down on Australian football, soccer, whatever.
In other words, how dare we compete with them? Tell me something. Harry Souttar and his move to Leicester, his campaign and his story, especially after doing a knee and managed to come back with so few hours under his belt. Was that a tremendous story for you, knowing full well not only the journey required, but how much work you have to do to play at that level? Were you impressed by Harry's efforts?
I was impressed and not amazed, but I was super impressed.
Because he's a big unit. He's a big unit.
I've lived through 7 knee operations, which was a handicap to me personally through my career. So, I looked at the injury that Harry had to conquer, and didn't he conquer it well? And you know what? As a defender, and Arnie would probably back me up on this. came back and he does the basics really well. When I was with the Galacticos in Madrid, they all to a T, from Zidane, Beckham, the whole lot, said, we do the basics of football really well. And you look at Harry Souttar, he's a defender. What's your job? What's your job as a defender? It's to actually stop strikers. However you do that, it is irrelevant. And for me as a coach, I don't care how you stop them. Just make sure you win that battle. And Harry, he's fantastic in the air. He reads the game well.
He does. He reads it. Yeah.
He reads it well. His tackling ability, the tackle that he came across, and slid in the World Cup,
sensational.
Was the equivalent of any Sergio Ramos tackle, and that's
high praise. That's high praise.
So I know Brendan Rodgers from my Reading days. We're friends. He was part of. When I took Tommy Rogic to Celtic, Brendan was a big part of all that. And, Brendan's not silly. He can see in Harry a wonderful asset that, if you tell a guy like Harry, these are the 4 or 5 things that I require from you in a football match. I don't want anything else. I want you to do this, and that. And Harry has the ability to complete those tasks. And for any opponent, 9 or 10, that comes up against Leicester City now and Harry, it's going to be a really tough day at the office.
We're talking to Andrew Bernal, our special guest on State of Our Football Nation, George Danikian, along with Pokuah Frimpong. We're talking all things football. It's been a remarkable journey that Andrew Bernal has embarked on over the years. Not only a championship-winning player, has played in the 3 leagues around the world, and of course his own author. He's lived a life that very few people can truly appreciate. But you touched on early on when we first reached out to you that there were some dark times. And what we don't readily appreciate is the torment and the dark moments in professional or elite sport. Can you give us a glimpse of some of the challenges and, again, the sorts of things that people need to do, or how they refashion their thinking to help them get out of those really, dispiriting times when it's maybe repeated injuries have taken them down and their confidence has nothing left?
Look, I think there's a character trait that I think I mentioned before, resilience. Not many people talk about it, and then it's something that humans, you really need to have a lot of that to get out of the good and bad days. And in football, I've had good days and bad days, injuries. I probably missed out on 80 Socceroo caps because of 7 or 8 operations that I had, at the wrong time, wrong place, and whatever. But I've still managed to play 21 times. So I'm very grateful for that. I don't seem ungrateful. But also during my time as a footballer, I was very disciplined and very professional in terms of the life that you have to lead to be that.
The sacrifices.
But afterwards I probably failed in life. I've been so disciplined in my whole career in terms of not drinking, not participating in drugs or anything like that. And it's probably, with the injuries I had, the fact that I didn't do that probably allowed me to achieve what I did achieve. But afterwards I went down, it's no secret now, I went down the cocaine way, and I ended up, addicted to cocaine. I ended up addicted to crack cocaine. And most people that get addicted to crack cocaine
don't come back.
Are either dead or brain dead, And so, George, I really think I don't know if there's a higher power or not, but I think I'm here for a reason. Part of that legacy now is to, educate the young ones coming through on the pitfalls in life. Not just football, but
in life,
how I came back from crack cocaine addiction is probably, you've got to create scenarios where something else becomes a drug. Back in football,
because you're a very addictive personality at that moment in your life, aren't you?
Oh, look, I just and I think the way I was addictive, compulsive, is what, made me become a young Socceroo captain, an Olyroos captain, play in Europe, and all that, that addictive kind of demeanour and behaviour. Then when you go the other way into drugs, you kind of want to go the whole way too. You're not stopping until you die or you collapse almost. So, but that, maybe it's something within me as a human, that strength of character, that resilience that allowed me to conquer any black days, in becoming a top professional footballer, was the strength that I required to stop, the cocaine and the crack cocaine use. But it was a mad time, George. I mentioned it in my book, and one day I'm locked up in the mental hospital, the Prince of Wales Hospital in Sydney, and a week later, Football Australia and the Socceroos are flying me out to Colombia. I'm addicted to cocaine, to crack cocaine, and they're flying me to Colombia to be Gus Hiddings' chief scout.
What was the turning point? Was there a person or a group of people who pulled you aside or gave you the sort of support that you needed to actually cut the umbilical cord and step away from what is an incredibly addictive drug?
Definitely meeting my wife, Janie, who is just a wonderful, wonderful human, and she's probably
saved your life.
The greatest single cause for me being here, and she saved my life. In the book also I wrote that there was at one point that you probably read it too, where Anthony Kiedis from the Red Hot Chili Peppers was out, trying to commit suicide, slowly torturing himself, doing heroin and cocaine in hotel rooms, and why, who knows, and I was the same, and hiding from the world. Yeah,
inner demons.
Trying to find peace up in space and not wanting to ever come down, and she would, at all hours of the night, be out looking for me, and so she was the one big reason. And then, you have a daughter, and then you see your parents suffering. You don't kind of see it when you're in it, but everyone around is hurting. So, you kind of choose at one point. I suppose, I don't know how I did it. A lot of people try and figure out, rehab centres and this and that, George. I can't. I just did it. I can't give you a process. I suppose I got sick and tired of being sick and tired, and I wanted to be a better dad, a better husband.
I spoke to you once about that, and I could feel and I could hear the enormous pride that you had for your child, for your daughter, and what her arrival in your life for you and your wife, it meant. And I'm not surprised to hear this. It validates that what I was thinking at the time was about very much on point. And it seems to me, and Pokuah and I have talked about it in other programs with people, we're all capable of making decisions that aren't going to be good for us. The challenge is to make the decisions that are good for us and to follow through. And that's what you, in this book and also, again, in this interview today, are reminding us yet again that you could have been lost, you could have been swallowed up, and you could have been out the door. But through a series of, I suppose, sheer, unadulterated intestinal fortitude, and that is guts, and a driver in you that would not let go. It's part of that DNA that we speak of. It's in your parents. You see it when you look into their eyes, and you understand how important it is. And I think, as you said, you looked at the lie of the land. You didn't like it, and you thought, I had to do something. And listen, just watching where you are right now, and to know that you have the capacity to influence young minds, boys and girls, and to give them the edge to take them to the next level, that's pretty special stuff.
Well, George, I'll tell you now, I do a lot of work here on the coast for the New South Wales Police Service, for the PCYC, I go to the Glen Rehab Centre here,
Yep.
the Salvation
Yep.
Army, and
They do a tremendous job. Yeah.
Yeah, Janie, my wife, comes along with us, and we. Can I tell you, I leave these places sometimes, and I feel happier than when I played a game for the Socceroos or any football. The impact that I can. That I see, that I have on these people that can.
You speak their language, Andy. You speak their language.
You've been their language. They know where I've been.
Yeah.
Yep. And then I say to them, if I can now be here as the head of athletic development at the Mariners, as an important part of this football organisation, and when I really shouldn't be alive,
yep.
That should be inspiring and light at the end of the tunnel for all of you. So I'm very proud of what I do now. I'm just, it's and I'm really living my best days now. There'll be another chapter and there'll be another book. Riding shotgun is we've only seen the first part now. Now I'm back in football, so look out.
Speaking of looking out, Pokuah Frimpong is young, as I say, commentator at Paramount Plus. Putting her edge and her professionalism each and every week, calling the Liberty Women's A-League. But I also know through what drives her, she arrived in this country as a young child from a Ghanaian background. And we've talked about it many a time. And I've said to her, you should trade a little bit on some of the great Dutch names, or Ghanaian names that have made an impact in the Eredivisie. And I said to her, there's a guy called Jeremy Frimpong, played in the Eredivisie. Why don't you claim that he's your long lost uncle?
Yeah.
And she's gone, a part of me does, but I'm not going to do it. So there's a fighter in there. There's as I said to you, the only dud thing about her is that she's an Arsenal fan. Well, I mean, go figure.
Fans, Andy, I want to go
we'll
back.
Give you that.
I want to go back to that. After you spoke about how, as a player, you were so disciplined and so focused on your goals, and that allowed you to overcome those obstacles and so many surgeries. Well, after your playing days, and I've heard a lot of players speak about retirement is really difficult because you're not doing the same things you've done your whole life. You're not around the club and the players and the camaraderie. It's different. And I just wanted to get your take on that and how difficult that was for you. Was that something that made it that transition into
even
substance abuse easier for you to get into because there wasn't the camaraderie around that you had before?
Look, your life changes overnight, in a really different way, and where you're so disciplined for many, many, many years, you then, and that's gone. You wake up one morning and you're not a footballer anymore, and you're not going into training, and what do you do?
Yeah.
So, and again, I'm not the most intelligent human on the planet. I'm not the dumbest human on the planet, But I wouldn't say that I kind of didn't have a real set plan after football. You think about things and you think, should I coach? Should I do this? Should I do that? For me, I fell into player management because a friend of mine at Reading Football Club knew David Beckham's agent, and she said, why don't you go to Mayfair and meet Tony Stevens, who's David Beckham's agent, and I think you'd make a real good agent.
And
so
you
I
did.
I walked into this office in Mayfair, and the first three names I saw on at the entrance were David Beckham, Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, and that's who they represented.
Right.
And I said to myself, well, I'm certainly going to stick around here. I'm not leaving this place. And by the end of it, Tony had said, you're going to become an agent with us, but, you've got to kind of pass a trial. I'll give you 3 months to bring Tim Cahill into the office. And within 24 hours, I had Timmy in the office and he signed for SFX. So I suppose I did all right with that trial. And that's how I became Timmy's agent. And we did the deal to Everton and stuff. But it was an industry and it was a job that, again, there was money in it. There were, at those levels, but I was really unhappy with that profession. The agent world is not me. I can be the biggest arsehole on the planet, and but I don't like being that. And I just felt that within that industry there was not enough honour and loyalty and trust. All those things are regularly broken every day in that industry, and it's not for me. So maybe it was the wrong job that I got into, but I'm not going to make excuses in terms of I didn't really know where I was going or whatever. I decided one day in the SFX office to try cocaine with a guy who gave it to me now, and I'm not going to name who he is, but he's dead. Yeah. He died in a New York hotel room from cocaine use. And it was my choice to try it, and it's a flight I should never have got on, and because I'm excessive compulsive, because I'm just
you take it to the next level.
Yeah, so that's what happened. So for me, it wasn't so much that I kind of couldn't do something new or didn't have something mapped out for the next 10, 20 years. It was the fact that I tried a substance that wasn't good for me, and I became addicted to it. And I'm very fortunate that I'm still here and be able to talk to you guys and inspire the next generation to be better humans than me at times in my life.
Let's talk about warnings. You know full well that the industry is filled with people from all walks of life. And there are the hangers-on, there are the people who also peddle all of this stuff. How do you protect the youngsters? What sort of things do you say to them? Do you give them a clue that there are going to be a lot of sharks in the water, and they have to be aware? Is that also something of this work that you're doing at the Central Coast Mariners? Is that the sort of thing that you're providing a bit of steel and giving them some reality checks as well as to the challenges that lie ahead in their careers and how they might have to behave a little differently to keep staying on top of things?
Well, it's the education, isn't it?
Yeah.
And, they've all the first team and the academy boys have read my book, and
so there are no secrets, is what you're saying.
I don't say it in an egotistical sense, but it's probably, if not one of the greatest football education books, sports education, life books that a young person, a young Matilda, a young Socceroo can actually read. It's all there, the information you need. And at the end of the day, the education starts with, if you're going to go down that path, you're going to end up, in the wrong company. You're going to end up falling foul of the law. It's going to affect your athletic development, your
career, and your life.
So, the one thing I do mention is that, whenever I wanted to be successful, whenever I was successful in football, I'm very, very proud that during my whole football career, I never touched a drug, and I never tested positive or anything. And I just wasn't that guy. I was fully focused and achieved what I did in football because I did the right things, the correct things. Now, if you want to go down the other path, it's going to end up in a real bad way, and I say to them, there's a strict policy here. If I see anything going on, if we see anything going on here, I'll grab you by the collar and I'll throw you straight out of this academy. I'll throw you straight out of this centre of excellence and never to return. If you have a problem, if you think you have a problem, put your hand up now, be brave, and we will help you.
Andy, you're the guy. I was going to say, you're the guy. You've seen so much of this. Can you give me a clue? Because one of the things I had to fight or keep at bay when I was a one-time president at a football club, it was the parents and wanting to run their child's career. How do you deal with parents? Not precocious children, but precocious parents, people who really want to meddle too much in their children's lives. And I say that there are a tremendous number of great parents, but there are some who just don't get it.
Oh, look, 90% of parents ruin their kids' dreams.
Wow.
Football dreams.
That's a big number.
From what I've seen.
So what advice do we give the parents? If they're going to bring someone to you and they care very much for their children, boy or girl, what advice do you give them? Or what do you want them to understand between you and them?
Leave the kid at the training complex and go home. Go do whatever you got to do. Go to work, go here, go there. And it's just be good parents. You know, when the kid goes home, do what you got to do as a parent and give them love and support, and however that may be. You know, support goes from there's many levels of it. From dropping your kid off at training to you know, the amount of love you give them to whatever, you know, the education. But, you know, leave the kid at our training ground in the morning and see you later. You know, don't want to try to sideline.
There you go, Pokuah. No, he's not cutting. He's not mincing words. He's telling you what he's watched and seen and born through. We don't need you on the sideline shouting. We don't need you. You know, Real Madrid and these places, you know, they actually, you know, lock the parents out. You don't go in. You know, it's leave that to us. Football education and football is a whole different world to the normal world. And I'm not even being nasty about it. It's just, it is how it is. You know, my dad was very supportive, but he'd take me to training and he'd stand, leave. He'd stand 300-400 metres away and you know, but, you know, you get a lot of parents that are these days trying to communicate with coaches via emails, social media, via everything, and you know, and they know nothing about football. That's the other problem. You know, if you, they think they know everything, and they're trying to meddle in a process. I had parents know nothing about. I had parents say to me, "If you don't let my son." If Johnny A, Anastasia, this was our coach, if Johnny A doesn't pick my son, I'm going to get him I'm going to take him to PAOK or Panathinaikos or Olympiakos, and we're going to go over in the summertime, and you'll see what you've lost. And I'd look at them and I'd go, you know, can I help you with a passport?
Yeah. How about we go to Flight Centre right now? We go to Flight Centre and sort your tickets out.
Andy, it's been...
Make it a holiday.
Mate, can I just say how rewarding it's been to listen to you give us a sense of what has been an incredible journey. The book, by the way, if you don't know about it, it's called Riding Shotgun. It's by Andy Bernal, and look, he speaks about some of the biggest names in the caper. There's a very good reason why there's a guy called Beckham, and he continues to do great things around the world. Just remind people, there are some people who think that Beckham is just a pretty boy that got lucky. There's much, much more to David Beckham than that, isn't there?
Oh, look, David is a wonderful footballer, was a wonderful footballer, a wonderful athlete. And Ronaldo Nazario used to always say to me, you know, he could play midfield for our Brazilian team. So, you know, if that's not the highest praise you can receive, then I don't know. But look, I was for a year in the making. Part of why I went to Real Madrid was my meetings with at the Bernabeu with Valdano and Butragueño, and eventually we got him there, and I was his personal manager in Madrid. And you know what? It was some fantastic times, but it's also a curse at times. And you know, a few years ago, I received an email from Scotland Yard, and you know, I'd been illegally, you know, followed and surveilled, and by the big media corporations in the UK. I was a victim of the phone hacking scandal in Britain, along with Prince Harry.
Which was notorious, yeah. Yep.
They found documents, you know, at private investigators' homes, you know, bits of paper with my name on the same bit of paper as Prince Harry, William, David Beckham, you know, my sister in the UK. So, you know, so it brings with it a whole new universe, and you know, that's why I wrote the book as well. You know, it
opened people's eyes.
It transcends football, but regarding David as a footballer, wonderful footballer.
But he's also a good businessman, isn't he?
Oh, look, many people thought he was mad, I think, at one point. I don't know the exact fees, but, you know, when he bought 50% of Inter Miami, for 25 million US or something like that. You can't buy an MLS franchise for under, half a $500 million now. So
He's done okay.
Very clever. It's a very clever marketing machine. It's a very clever machine that runs that whole organisation.
There you go.
I could sit with you for a whole day and talk about it. It's almost Vatican-like. Seriously.
Andrew, I was just going to say, we've almost run out of time. I just want to take, again, this opportunity to wish you guys at the Central Coast Mariners a fantastic end of the season. This is the crunch time. This is when the games now start taking on even greater significance. Pokuah keeps saying that there are only a bundle of teams, that really have what it takes to make the leap and to really impose themselves. And the Central Coast Mariners are right there, yeah?
Central Coast Arsenal is what I called them last time when Nick Montgomery was on.
Wow. Thank you, Pokuah.
That's what I did. That's what I called them last time.
And Andrew Bernal has been...
We love you.
Andrew Bernal has been our special guest on State of Our Football Nation, part of the programming team here at FNR, Football Nation Radio. This streams right across the country and across the world. Until next time, look after the team and the youngsters at the academy. Give Nick our best, and please say hi to Richard, who just continues to chug along and make a huge difference.
Thank you, guys. Really appreciate having me on the show, and we will do our best to keep entertaining you guys all around Australia.
Good on you, mate. Andrew Bernal. And as he said, not only riding shotgun these days alongside Nick Montgomery, but when he needs to step up, not afraid to. Not afraid to
at all.
Okay, we're almost ready to wrap up. Is there anything you want to mention to me? Where are you calling this week?
There's no Liberty A-League action because of the Cup of the Nations tournament with the Matildas. So
Who wins tonight?
Matildas.
Yep.
Yeah.
You liked some of the players coming through?
Yeah, it's I less so about the players picked, and I just want to see the playing style and see the strategy.
So because you see this as a major 100% rehearsal for the World Cup, yeah?
Yeah, in a sense, yeah. I think we need to have convincing wins, but we'll see how that goes.
Okay, so two more before you go. Moreland City or South Melbourne, who wins tonight at Lakeside? Game starts at 7:30.
I'll go with South Melbourne, but as a former Oakley Cannons employee, I will be going for the Oakley Cannons, and I'll be commentating that game with Lockie Flanagan. They're taking on Green Gully tomorrow at Jack Edwards Reserve. So
okay, and for the weekend, the derby, it's Victory and Melbourne City. Who are you going?
I guess I think there's more. I think City will win. I'm not going for either team. I think City will win though.
Gee, there you go. All right, George Pokuah, Pokuah Frimpong, thank you for joining us. Until next week. You're listening to the State of Our Football Nation on FNR.